Bonjour. Hello. I'm very pleased to be with you today and with the two guests we have that I'm going to introduce you right now. So we have with us Peggy Baker, dancer, choreographer, and the one who create and are behind the show Who We Are in the Dark, and Tony Hauser, co-choreographer and co-filmmaker of the movie Dancing Darkness. So Dancing Darkness explore artistic creativity through the making of Peggy Baker's most ambitious work, Who We Are in the Dark. So for those who do not know who is Peggy Baker, let me introduce you a little bit to this national treasure. Peggy Baker is acclaimed as one of the most outstanding and influential contemporary dancers of her generation. She burst into modern dance in 1971, working with dance major choreographers such as Mark Morris, Lara Leibovitch, James Koudelka, Michael Baryshnikov, before turning full-time to choreography. She established Peggy Baker Dance Project in the 90s, and since 2010, her choreography has focused on works for small ensemble. So Who We Are in the Dark, the show the film is talking about, is really something, the most recent thing she has made with her company. And the film is about this fantastic project I have seen in 2019. The film starts with this quote: "Life is about creating things and creating yourself." It's a quote by Bob Dylan. And the film finished by one of the mentees of Peggy Baker, Patricia Beatty, who said that Peggy is someone who, for her, really dance is about a journey. And for Peggy, it seems to be a discovering something you don't know before you start to choreograph. I must say, Tony and Peggy, that I really love the film. I think it's a great work. It really gives you keys to any contemporary dance process. And it's a major quality of this film. None to mention that it also shows us fantastic images of the show and on being the scene, and also gives us some really great interviews. So I'll start with a question, Peggy.
Okay.
In the film, you say that for you, when you are in the middle of a process, you say that for you, it's like painting. Can you give us more information about why you say that for you, putting all these elements together in order to create a show, to present a work with lighting, dancers, graphic design? Why do you call your own process like doing a
Okay. Well, I don't even remember saying that. It must have been in the context of something very particular. But perhaps I'm talking about, now that I'm not inside the work myself, that I'm able to step back and take it in at scale, so that I can step toward it and work on different elements, and then I can also step back. I think, well, it's also active. And if I was putting paint onto a canvas, I need to be participating with the materials and with my imagination in the moment. Perhaps that was what I was talking about. I think I've used lots of analogies about what my working process is.
How does the film, the idea of this film start, Tony?
For me, well, I have photographed Peggy maybe 2 or 3 times in my life. And one day I met her and I said, Peggy, I'd like to do a new photograph of you. And she said to me, you know, actually, I don't dance anymore, but I'm doing a big production right now. Why don't you come to the National Ballet School where I'm rehearsing with my dancers, and maybe you make some photographs of that. And so I went, and then about a week later, I've made some photographs of the dancers in rehearsal in the studio, very much in the beginning of this show of Peggy's. And then I went to see another performance, and I thought, dance is all about movement, and I'm freezing the dancers in my still photographs. I should do a documentary. So I went back to Peggy and I said, look, Peggy, I've decided I'm going to make a documentary. And she rolled her eyes to heaven. Really? and I thought, oh yeah, I don't know what I'm getting myself into it, but because I hadn't done much videography at all. Although I love the motion picture, the feeling of motion pictures. I loved films forever. And so that's how I got into, I just started and learned a lot from doing it. I also wanted to be, I wanted to be a fly on the wall, but of course that's not possible when you come with cameras and sound people and, you know. So anyway, it evolved from there. And I also raised a bit of money from clients of mine. And ultimately I said, I have to make this film because otherwise I'll have to move to the Amazon and become a fisherman, because my clients will never speak to me if I come and say, well, I didn't do anything with your money. It just went away. so this is how it evolved, and I put my mind to it. And I have to say, Peggy was super helpful and tolerant of me because I must have been a big intrusion into her work process. But she put up with me, and thank God for that.
I must say the images of the dancers in the studios are amazing. So you really were like a fly, because it's like you were like ghost in the because you were able to take some very intimate thing from the dancer. Peggy, the show we haven't mentioned is a very close collaboration you had with Sarah Neufeld from Arcade Fire. And actually, We Are in the Dark start from a first something more smaller you did with her at Fall for Dance in Toronto. So could you explain how from that little segment you did, both of you, you decide to go to a more ambitious work involving different type of art form, including this visual art and design and lights and of course the dance.
Okay, yeah, it really exploded from one little tiny piece. Fall for Dance North was initiated in Toronto in 2015, and the artistic director, 𝘿𝙧𝙧 𝘿𝙖𝙧𝙗𝙗, for the very first year, he wanted to commission a solo from me. And actually, I had already retired from dancing, just like I had told Tony, oh, I'm not dancing anymore. If you want to take pictures, it needs to be of my dancers. I said to 𝘿𝙧𝙧, I don't dance. And he had his heart set on me performing. So I just thought, if I go back on stage, I can't go back with a collaborator that people already identify with me. If I'm going to do something, if I go back, it has to be something brand new. And I just thought it would be so wonderful to work with somebody from the rock world. I'd like to work with a young woman who crosses over maybe between new music and rock. And I was able to get an introduction to Sarah Neufeld, a virtual introduction. I got her email address and I wrote her an email introducing myself. You don't know who I am, but I'm a choreographer. And I asked her if she'd like to do something with me. And she just very boldly jumped right in. She was getting a ball work ready to release early in 2016. And so we started looking at works that she was getting ready for that, and I chose something, and we worked individually, and then she came to Toronto for a weekend, and oh my God, I loved being with her in the room. She's super, super physical. She had beautiful ideas. She absolutely took me in with her eyes and she played my dancing as if it was her score. And when we finished, we had 2 performances. In the morning of the second show, I went out for a coffee with her and I said, Sarah, you have just lit a fire in me and I would love to make a big work with you. And she said, yeah, I'm thinking the same thing, because we really, really hit it off. So from that point, I started trying to figure out how am I going to gather enough resources that I can commission Sarah Neufeld to write a score for me. And also, probably not the greatest idea to think of a full evening work only with violin. Who would she have as her collaborator? And she chose Jeremy Gara, also from Arcade Fire. So, which was great because then they had at least the same schedules they were dealing with because they were super, super busy. But anyway, it just arose from an invitation that I almost didn't accept, you know, to go back on stage. And it absolutely threw me into a brand new collaborative relationship with a spectacular artist. I've loved every moment of my work with her.
What is really interesting in the show I've seen in the Danse series in 1 year from now, it was that I used to see you as a solo dancer, you know, and you were able to transmit another kind of vocabulary to your dancer. So it wasn't, I wasn't watching to small Peggy, but I was watching to something different, something new and innovative. And this is also underlined during the film, because Tony gives a lot of space to the dancer to talk about their own experience working with you. And you explain in the film, and this is why I found the film is extremely accessible. It was not your goal, but the film explained, you know, how it start, how you all start a choreography at the really first one. What is to create a choreography from scratch, from the white page. And only for that reason, it's a documentary that everyone should see, even in schools, because it's really, you know, you were able to catch this at the really first intention, and in 3 acts, because the film is in 3 acts, and slowly brings us to the final, you know, the final show when the curtain is going up, and so it's really something fantastic.
Yeah.
How Tony, you imagine the structure of the film itself?
Well, part of it was really important to have the dancers and Peggy and Sarah Neufeld talk about how they feel about working with a choreographer, and also how they feel about the aspect of darkness that is part of the film. Of course, it's the theme of the dance, and it was really important for them to tell the story. My initial idea was, how does an artist create something? It could be a painter, and here we have an artist like a choreographer. How does she, or how do they bring it all together? That was the idea. I wanted to explore how this works. It was a big struggle for me, actually, because I didn't have a storyline. I took a quick course at a film school on how to create a story, and I said, well, I thought the story would evolve on its own, but no, you have to have a story. Ultimately, the story was really given to me by Peggy and by the dancers, telling me how telling us, the filmmaker, and Ellen, my co-director. And I have to mention, Ellen was very, very instrumental. I was at a point, this project took 3 years for Peggy to create, and it took me all this time to figure out, how am I going to tell this story? And I realized that it's the dancers who will tell how they feel, and they will create the story, the structure of the film. That's how we came together. And I swear to God, without Ellen Tolmie, who was my co-director and is my co-director on this project, I would have had a real hard time. coming up with the storyline. We had probably 10 hours or 20 more hours of interviews, and to hone this down, to find the important parts that would help the story evolve in the film was very important, and I think I would have struggled on my own.
When did you decide to, because most of the film is in black and white, you choose black and white instead of color. The interviews are black and white.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
The interviews are a little bit desaturated, actually, and we decided that the actual rehearsal part, where the dancers come with their regular rehearsal clothes, outfits, should be in black and white, and then we tried to make only the performance part in color, so that the audience of the film can see at least get a glimpse of what the piece is about, what the dance is about. And it was also our hope that it would inspire people to go and see the performance, which is, of course, not possible right now.
Peggy, you said that in the movie that this show was an occasion for you to work with John Hewald, the person who did these fantastic walls, drops, and unfortunately he passed away since I think 1 year ago. Anyway, so could you tell me more about why him, and what because it's during the movie, it's true that you have a true connection. You have a real connection with him. It's on the images, and when I have a chance to see the show, it's a major element of the whole project.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think bringing John into the project for me was totally a eureka moment when I realized I knew I wanted projections on the stage, but I didn't. But so then as soon as I started picturing projections, they went all the way onto the back wall or onto the floor. And it just I felt like it wasn't giving me what I needed. I needed the space somehow broken up. And I had known John's work for a very long time. I believe that I met John in the mid-1980s. I met him through Linda Rabin, who's a great dance creator, educator in Montreal. And she's very close friends with Sylvia Safdie, who is John's partner. So I met both Sylvia and John, and I'd known them for a long, long time. And John always thought it would be wonderful to do something together. And just one day, bang, I thought of John. I was driving my car to a rehearsal, and I pulled over and I took out my phone and I phoned him from my car, and I said, John, this is Peggy calling from Toronto. And I've just had an idea about working together on a project that I have sort of cooking. He was the last collaborator that I brought in, but for me, on a visual level, his work made everything make sense. The black and white, the damage to like you feel the physical history of the materials in his work. They felt like ghosts to me in the space. And they created all this depth of field with the projections. I feel so incredibly fortunate that we did our work at the point that we did. He should have come to Banff with us for our residency, and he was already getting too sick to travel. But to go to his studio, to his home in Montreal, and he was just, as you saw in the footage, he was just incredibly generous. And also for me, I really, really value working across generations. The dancers in my company represent a full span of about 25 years, like very, early 20s to mid 40s. And then I'm 20 years older than that. And then John was 20 years older. I want this stimulation from people whose worldviews somehow were catalyzed at different times in history. And I also feel that older artists have really, they've let go of everything but the absolute essentials for them. And I wanted to be I wanted to feel his impact on me. And yes, these drops that he created for us, I just think they're spectacular. I love them. They, for me, they really carry the essence of the whole work. In the essence, that's where it is.
Is the show still touring, or do you have plans after the pandemic to continue to tour it as
Well, yeah, we were really lucky the year before, like the fall of 2019, we went to Mexico. In February of 2020, we went to the Holland Dance Festival. We should have been going this year to Penn State University in Pennsylvania in the US. We should have been going to SUNY Purchase. None of us know what the future holds. I hope, we hope that this work will still have a life after the pandemic, but it's just impossible to know.
I love the idea of thinking that the film and the shows, the live show, will tour together, because it's really they really talk one to the other, and it's extremely it's quite rare in contemporary dance to have that kind of career. Really, I'd like to take. Unfortunately, Helen is not with us, but I'd like to thank Tony and Helen to have this fantastic idea of doing a documentary on a process in the contemporary dance field. I realize also that when you create the show, you would have you said at the beginning, where I'm going to find this money, to create my dream. And I know the Can Dance Network was key in the process. Some presenters were involved in the beginning of the show. You mentioned Banff Center. You had a residency, but I'm sure that other presenters in contemporary dance in Canada had support you, and I'm sure it was pretty. It was something important at the beginning of this whole adventure.
Oh, it could not have happened. Danse were in right from the outset, Canadian Stage and Fall for Dance North in Toronto and the Banff Center. And then we also were supported by the National Creation Fund. Honestly, without that, I can't imagine. Well, we never could have made such a work. We still would be in a studio in our practice clothes.
Yeah. Peggy, was the National Arts Centre also involved?
Yes, thank you. At the National Arts Centre.
Right.
Yeah.
This is great. I wish they could support you for another project, because the result was gorgeous.
Thank you.
And not only gorgeous, but also, the subject darkness. It wasn't an easy one, but we have some time to go in that areas in our lives. So we have to. It's not only the sun. It's sometimes the night, and life is about making some balance between the light and the dark. And this show helps us to just remind us we have a dark side, and you splendidly illustrated this, and so the show was gorgeous, and the film as well. So I hope the audience of the Festival International de Film sur l'Art will go to look at this movie. And again, I think to have this film present in schools, not only contemporary dance schools, but school in general, would be a great idea, because it's really a document about an artistic process, and it's around major artists from Canada, and someone mature, someone who has a very specific idea in her mind, and this is why I think it's going to be a good idea. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you so much for your kind words. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to see you through the Zoom.
Yeah.
Thank you, Festival. Thank Tony. I hope we will have the pleasure to see us again in the real life.
One day.
One day, yeah. In Montreal and Toronto, or who knows.
Yeah.
Thanks to the festival, and see you soon. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for